Today, I'm joined by Montana Fouts, softball pitcher for the United States women's national softball team, a four-time All-American pitcher at the University of Alabama. She was named NFCA National Pitcher of the Year, Softball America Pitcher of the Year, amongst many other awards and accomplishments. She is also known for pitching a perfect game against UCLA in the 2021 Women's College World Series on her 21st birthday. How cool is that? Welcome, Montana.
Thanks for having me.
So I know you have been traveling a lot in recent months, and you have a lot of travel coming up with camps and tournaments and everything else. Do you have any travel musts, like anything that you must have when you travel?
Oh gosh, the list is honestly way too long for as much as I travel. I always, like the night before, can catch myself going to my notes app, like, do not forget in all caps, and then the list is like this long. Um, do not forget. I guess it depends on the trip. If it's softball, it's glove, face mask, cleats. Like, cannot go without it. But like personal trips and things like that, um, I would say probably like hair and skincare. Can't go without it for sure.
Right. Oh,
Yeah.
for sure. Yeah, I always have just different things that are my must. And then you said something that made me think of something that happened to us the other day. Have you ever gone to a game when you were younger, or even now, where you've forgotten something really important for
Yeah.
softball?
Yeah. It literally it happened. It's like and now when I'm older, like I'll have these dreams of like forgetting. I had this dream the other day that I was still in school and I wore shorts instead of pants because I forgot my pants and I got in trouble. I was like, why am I having dreams about that? So it's a real thing. It's a real thing.
It's a real thing. We had our first day of tryouts the other day for my oldest, and we pull up to the parking lot. We're 15 minutes early, and she's like, "Mom, I forgot my shoes." And I'm
Mhm.
like, "What?" I'm like, "What are you wearing?" And she's like, "I'm wearing my slides." I'm like, "Oh my gosh."
Yes. And then
So we,
we're always wearing the slides too, no matter what.
yes,
It's not like something that you just have to go barefooted
no.
every day.
Yeah, I did a survey in the car. I'm like, "Okay, are there any shoes in the car?" And then I asked my middle daughter, I'm like, "Do you have your shoes on?" She's like, "I'm wearing slides." I'm like, "Oh my gosh." So I totally, and I did the same thing, but I was not entirely thrilled.
Yes,
But it works out. So I know that you have played softball for a long time. What first sparked your love for softball, and when did you realize that pitching was your thing?
well, my dad always played softball, like slow pitch men's leagues kind of thing when I was younger. So I just remember going to that a lot. And then it wasn't on TV as much as it is now. So like I was always drawn to the World Series that time of year. So just watching that and not too many people around here, especially when I was younger, was playing fast pitch softball. So it's not like I got to see a lot of people pitch. So I just remember going to like a very like close camp. Like there wasn't a lot of girls there. It was just like to work on skill. It wasn't like there was special guests or anything like that. And
Mm.
there was one of my friends was like throwing a ball underhand into a net. I was like, "What are you doing?" Because I just played first base at the time. I had to have been like six, and I was like, "What are you doing?" And she's like, "I'm pitching." I was like, "Well, I want to try." And I just remember like instant fall in love, looking up YouTube videos after that, and then like kind of putting it all together like on TV. I was like, "Oh, that's the pitcher." And then honestly, since then, I haven't looked back, and that's been my favorite position.
So have you always played it, or did you alternate back and forth to first?
Yeah, I always alternated back and forth until I got
Okay.
to school. And then I always hit too. People ask me all the time. So I hit growing up, and I would encourage every pitcher to do the same. Honestly, if I was more athletic, I wish I would have been able to play more positions. I think it's just such a skill to have and to be able, because I mean, as a pitcher, you have to be able to field your position.
Yeah.
Like to be honest, I mean something that's what I work on now is just being able to be more athletic and shortstop like as much as I joke about it. But that would be awesome to be able to play all those different positions.
Yeah, it's been really great lately. I feel like this season with the girls, they have been able to play multiple positions, and that's something
Yeah.
like pretty much exactly what you just said is what our coaches have said.
Yeah,
The
and it's
importance
so
of that.
true. I mean, the college coaches too, like encourage a lot of people to play other sports just because it keeps you
Mhm.
athletic and moving. And obviously, like once you get to a certain level with softball, it's pretty much all you do all the time. So it's a little bit
Yeah.
harder to play other sports, but I think it's great to just be able to do a little bit of everything.
Yeah. Yeah, it's hard to balance it all.
Yes.
I
Yes.
we're learning that very quickly. So you've played on some of the biggest stages. Is there a moment being on the field that just stands out above all the rest?
Oh gosh, there's so many. Um, I mean, I could talk for probably like hours just about different, probably like points in my life. And like now on the, not the backside because I'm still playing, but as far as like in college when you're doing it every single day, there's not really time to breathe. So like now after having some time to breathe and like kind of looking back, I could probably pinpoint like each year a few different like significant games that just I won't ever forget that has made the biggest difference.
Mhm.
Um, I mean, just off the top of my head, like I'm thinking of freshman year was like, I don't even want to say easy because I know we lost some and like whatever, but it just felt like a pretty smooth ride. And then sophomore year hit me like a ton of bricks. Like I remember they actually just played the tournament now, but in Clearwater in 2020, so right before COVID, was like I was like, get me off the field. I don't even want to be out here kind of moment. And then in
Mhm.
2021 is kind of full circle with the perfect game against UCLA because that was the game where I was like, I don't even want to be on the field anymore. So like those, and then in my last year, just being hurt some, and so there's a little bit each year that I can kind of take away and definitely have core memories of for sure.
Yeah. So you said that that was kind of there were moments where you didn't want to be on the field anymore. Can you expand on that a little bit?
Yeah. Like I said, my freshman year, so I played travel. I mean, playing travel softball, that's all I did from 8 to 18, 17, I guess, whatever, how old I was when I went to school. And there was definitely some moments, even when I was younger. But you seem to forget the bad ones sometimes, like whenever you move past the mountain. Um, but nothing felt as significant like when you're in school, TV, there's so many people watching, and freshman year, it felt pretty easy. There was moments, but it just felt pretty smooth. And then sophomore year, it's like you're supposed to be good, you're supposed to be the best, you're supposed to do all of these things. And then I went out there and just was like none of it. So I had
Mhm.
got hurt and I had to take some time off. And then I was just not in a great mental spot at all. Like I was like, I'm not prepared. I'm not ready for this. And then season started, and then I already set myself up for failure by the way I was thinking. And then when we got into it, 2020, it was exactly what I basically had told myself was going to happen.
Mhm.
And then COVID happened, and then I kind of got that break of like, all right, what are we doing? Why are we thinking this way?
Mhm.
And then kind of got to be home and like figure out why I actually love to play. So then that kind of helped reset everything. So
Mhm.
during that time, I just was just putting all these expectations on myself, kind of talking myself down. I had great people around me. I really did. And it's kind of one of those things where it's like you actually have to believe it yourself or find something. There's so many things bigger than myself, but in the moment, it's like I want to be the best for the team. But then it's like, you're not the whole team, right? So I
Mhm.
think it's just like putting it in perspective and like really listening to those people that care about you. And that's honestly when I found like my faith full. Like I had always went to church growing up. My mom had always taken us, and I thought I had like a good relationship, but it just was not the case until like you're really at the bottom of the barrel. For me, anyway, I had to go there
Yeah.
apparently,
Yeah.
and then I was like, this is the only way. And then that just saved probably my life, but then my softball career also.
Yeah. I think oftentimes we all have to hit that rock bottom sometimes to really because we can just go through the motions constantly
Yeah.
and kind of be reactive to things instead of being proactive and being intentional. And we, for us, like obviously 2020 COVID and everything was not a great time, but at the same time it provided a really good reset, I think, for our family where we were able to take some time and reflect on different things. Things slowed down. We definitely didn't have any FOMO about anything because no one was doing anything.
Right.
And so it allowed us just to slow down. And that was really great for us in that way. And, I look at the girls now, like when we're going to the games, and I used to work with the youth group for years, and just the kind of pressure that they put on themselves is crazy. I remember playing sports and feeling pressure but I just feel like it's elevated a lot. I mean, I would have girls in my youth group that would, they were like, I don't know, 13, 14, and they were super stressed. Like, what am I going to do with my life? Like, what am I going to do? And, I need to know now, and all of that different types of pressure that we're not really meant to have, but we spiral on it. And it's really hard. So I think, like you said, like having that moment to reset and reflect on who you are and why you're doing what you're doing, especially when you've been doing it so long and you're probably just going through emotions. You're loving it. And like you said, you don't always remember the down times as much, but just taking that moment is super important. So do you feel like those types, like you being able to have that time, made it easier for you in like those high stakes games, with the pressure you may have felt from like coaches or even the crowd? I mean, crowds can be intense. How do you prep for that?
Honestly, like after that whole situation and like that time in my life happened, I think and honestly, being able to do the camps and the tournaments and like going and seeing all of these people, especially, I mean, it helped. They don't understand how much it helps me. They really don't, because like my perspective is just completely changed, because I'm like, how lucky am I? That's like my favorite thing to tell myself, even in like the hard times. It's like, I mean, we're sitting here talking about like my bottom of the barrel. Like when I say it, it's like we're talking about softball. And it's like the older that I'm getting, the more it's like, yes, while that's a huge part of my life, it's like that is not my life though. It's not all of who I am. So it's not easy. I won't say that, but it's getting easier the more that I practice it, to be like, this is supposed to be fun. Although it's my job, like, how lucky am I that I even get to play? How lucky am I that I get to have a tough situation and my bottom of the barrel be I'm not performing as well as I want. Like, it feels a lot deeper when you're in it and you care about something, but like being able to take that reset and step back and be like, yeah, that stinks, but it's life. The sun came up, I woke up, and we get to move on. I won't take credit for it because I say it every single day now. Murph, he always would just be like, good. Like, if that happens, good. Like, thank goodness that I get to do it again, wake up. I mean, there's just so many things that can happen. And I mean, I just feel like, especially those that get to play and being on the side of being hurt too. And when I say hurt, I just mean I was out for like a few weeks, or like I've had to take a couple months off. Like, there's so many people that just aren't able to do what they love anymore, and not just in softball. So I think having perspective of like, how lucky am I, has taken me a long way, especially the older that I've gotten, for sure.
Yeah. Yeah. You get that perspective shift, and super important. And I think also realizing, like you said, that it's not everything. Yeah, it's a great thing. It's a blessing. And I feel like in these situations, God puts you in these certain arenas and different things for his glory, but also realizing that it's not everything. And I think that also releases some of the pressure too, because if you are feeling like it is everything, you feel all of this pressure, and it's a lot. It's a lot more than we should be able to handle. And I remember in high school, basketball was more my thing, so I played, and then I remember my senior year, I was burnt out, and I remember being like, I I don't want to play this year, but also struggling with what am I if I'm not playing.
Yeah.
And I remember my mom saying, your identity should not be found in basketball or a sport. Your identity needs to be founded in Christ alone. And it was a very eye-opening moment for me, because I didn't realize I was doing that I was putting my
Yeah.
identity in something else. And so I totally relate in that way, to what you're saying about thinking that this is everything and then having a perspective shift. You're still very grateful. And honestly, I think it makes you more grateful, because you realize what you're able and capable of doing. And something we pray a lot is, we'll be on our way to softball practice, and we'll pray with the girls, like, thank you for allowing us to have the opportunity to even do this, to be capable of doing this. It's just a blessing.
Yeah, I completely agree. And I just think another thing with that, something that I was reminded of when you were talking, was my sophomore year that we were talking about of COVID. I remember I'm talking like you, it's just a different person. I was a different person. And I remember being it was like a motivational class. It was at school, like in Tuscaloosa. And I remember my professor, it was like sport, it's something with sports. And I remember I stayed after. He was kind of like a, not account like not a sports psychologist or anything like that, but just a very real person. So like would be the one to tell me something straight. And I
Mm-hmm.
just remember he would be like, whenever we talk about the crowds and like their perspective on things, it's like, well, it can either make or break you in a way, and it's
Mm-hmm.
like there's going to be somebody out there that has not ever seen you play before. This will be the very first game they've ever been to. They've never seen you in person. So, like, what do you want them to remember or like see
Mm-hmm.
from you? And it's like, well, you know that you cannot control like, you can give 100%, but you cannot always control the outcome of that.
Right.
So, it's
Mm-hmm.
like, what can they get from me that makes their ticket worth it? Right. So I think
Mm-hmm.
just preparing life outside of that is very much like my identity is in other things. And then when I get out there, my job is to be the best version of me. How can I, even if I don't feel like it, or put myself away in a drawer for a little bit, and how can I let Jesus go through me so that way their ticket means something? So I think
Mm-hmm.
having perspective and just being able to change it like on the day to day, like,
Yeah.
because there's going to be
Yeah.
different motivations, different things pop up. So I think just being able to recognize, like on the way to softball practice, how
Mm-hmm.
lucky are we to get to stand here? And I'm so tired, but what if I wasn't doing this? I would be crying on the couch if I couldn't do
Right.
this. That's what would be happening. So I think just
Right.
little things like that go such a long way, and it can either be heightened or it can be just on the way to practice. Like later today, I worked out this morning. My legs are tired, and I'm going to be complaining for about 30 seconds. And then I'm going to have to tell myself how lucky I'm 24. I get to play with USA, professional, things I've always wanted to do that your girls are going to want to do. They're going to be like, why is
Mm-hmm.
Montana complaining about she gets to do this? Exactly. So I need to shut
Right.
my mouth and
Right.
thank Jesus for the opportunity, for
Mm-hmm.
sure.
Right. It's all relative in that moment.
Yeah. Yes, exactly.
I
It's
get it.
something I'm lucky that my fiance, my mom, my dad, everybody reminds me. They're like, "How cool is this?" And I'm like, "You're right."
It is. It is. And it's okay sometimes to feel that, overwhelm of those moments. And like you were saying, I feel like God uses those lower moments or that overwhelm to bring us closer to him if we allow it. So they're all, they're really opportunities, really.
Yeah, absolutely.
So is it right that you committed to play for the University of Alabama when you were just 14?
Yes, it was Halloween of, I guess it had been 2014 or 2013. I was definitely 14 at the time. Yes.
That is just unbelievable to think about. My oldest just turned 15, so I remember hearing that and being like, wow, like that's such a pivotal age and you're just trying to figure yourself out. How was that for you to have that commitment at that early of an age?
Honestly, now looking at it as 24, so 10 years later, it's kind of crazy that we were ever like allowing younger girls to make that decision.
Right.
But that's just what was happening at the time. So I felt really lucky because um, I got the opportunity, and I'm thankful to be able to see like a lot of different schools, talk to a bunch of different coaches. And I definitely had like some top schools that it was all pretty close. And then I had visits actually scheduled after Alabama.
Mm,
And then when I went there, I was like, for some reason, I was like, this is it. Like, I don't even want to. So I canceled them, which is, I don't, kind of crazy now looking back at it. Like, definitely go see all the options, but
right.
just something about the homey feeling that I got there, and the girls just genuinely seemed to love each other. And there wasn't, I knew I wanted to play in the SEC, and the closest SEC school is 2 hours from here at
Mm,
UK, which was great and would be a great school. But just going to Alabama, I was like, it's far away from home, 8 hours. I mean, I can't just pack up and leave after practice and go home. So I
right.
wanted something that would feel like home. And the players kept saying it the whole time, but like just Murph and the staff cared more about them as people than just the athletes. And you don't realize how big of a deal that is until you're actually there and you're athlete constantly. Like
Hmm.
even in class, like you're known as the athlete because you're going to be gone 3 out of the 4 class days.
Oh
So
my
you're the
gosh.
athlete, you got to make all this stuff up, but who's taking care of you as a person, especially in the college years and college age? I just feel like it's hard to navigate everything, let alone at 14. So I'm
Yeah.
really blessed that I was led in that direction and got the opportunity because I couldn't even imagine it any other way.
That's awesome to be able to get that feeling when you go and you visit somewhere like that. I always pray for open doors and closed doors because I just need direction sometimes. And
Yeah.
sometimes I'm like, I don't know. So to be able to get an answer like that and feel that kind of peace at such an early age is amazing.
Yes. Yeah.
And congratulations, by the way, on being drafted recently. That's super
Thank you.
fun. That's
Thank you.
amazing.
I'm really excited about it. It should be a great time. I got to play last year in the AUX, which was just like a few weeks, and it was the non-traditional to where you're switching teams
Oh, okay.
every time that you play. So it was different. Although I honestly went in, I don't even want to say closed mind. I just didn't have high hopes because one thing I just love being a part of a team, but I just had a blast. I think all the people were awesome. I loved my teammates, so I'm even more excited to be like a part of a team with some of the same people. So I think it's going to be great.
Yeah. And so when does that start? And how long is the season?
So I think the first weekend might be June 7th. I don't want to quote myself on that, but I think it's right after the World Series is
Okay.
when the games will start. We report earlier to train and stuff like that. And that will go until sometime in July.
Okay.
So we're traveling around. Well, we don't even know all the locations yet, but I think that they'll announce it as soon as they know. And be traveling around for that. And then the whole month of August, we'll go back to like the non-traditional way of playing where you're like rotating. So you get
Okay.
a little bit, it's called, my gosh, Champions Cup.
Okay.
So there's a little bit of everything in there. It's going to be a busy summer, but I'm excited about it.
Yeah, that'll be great. That'll be so much fun. Now, will that be on ESPN? Will it be televised?
I know a lot of games will be on ESPN. Yeah.
Okay, great. Awesome. So I recently spoke to Leah Miko. I think I told you that on the podcast, and listening to her Olympic experience was just amazing. Do you have hopes of playing in the Olympic Games in 2028?
Absolutely. Yeah. I think that that is a big reason why I'm still playing. I'm incredibly blessed to be able to do so. But I think that that's something that keeps me going to practice this evening whenever, or like tomorrow evening, like the really hard times. I'm like, okay, so what would 2028 Olympian Montana want to do in this situation? I think that that's always in the probably front of my brain all the time is at least making that a shot or at least going after it because it's going to be competitive and it's going to be hard. But I think just being able to say that there's a chance is something I'm honored to do.
Yeah, it's awesome. I'm just happy that it's going to be back in the Olympics.
Yes. Long time coming. So I'm
It
excited.
is. It is. So I know for myself, there were many life lessons to be learned and experienced when playing sports, and I'm getting that front row seat right now with my girls to see how they're growing and changing with it. And I'm continually reminding them that God has placed them on different teams and situations to glorify Him and to surrender to Him, like we were talking about earlier. And I love your Be the Blessing theme that you carry into your tournaments, camps, merchandise. We recently attended one of your camps, and my favorite part was when you spoke to the girls at the end and you said, for those of you that want to know more about Jesus, like I'm here to talk to you about that. And you talked about the importance of that. I just loved how clear you were on it. And I was wondering, can you share how your faith in Christ has shaped your journey and more about how you came up with Be the Blessing?
Yeah, of course. I mean, honestly, that's just everything. And that's why I really started talking about it because I didn't always, because I think it's one of those things, especially like a few years ago, like I was doing the camps, but I mean, I know not everybody has the same like outlook on things. So I think that kind of hindered me before, like just being outwardly spoken because I want to please everybody. But at the end of the day, like I don't know what it did. I can't remember. It might have been the beginning of last summer, maybe. And it just hit me. I was like, well, that's the only reason I'm able to do this anyway. I was like, I can't believe that I've just not been doing this the whole time. Like, I hope that people can see that and see Jesus in me. Hopefully, like even a little bit, just like a little sparkle is my goal. But I want to be able to tell them the truth because I would not be able to stand in front of the camera, in front of them, if I did not have that, like without a doubt. So whenever like they ask me questions about like my perspective or like, what do you do if it's full count, bases are loaded? I honestly cannot tell you anything that doesn't like it has everything to do with Jesus. Like I talked to him during the whole game. I don't know because it's not me. Like there's been I remember when it was me and it was not good. So it's like just being able to have him in my corner and know that that's where all of the hard things are going through just makes it so much easier to just be able to be like, hey, it's not, I got to be honest with you because I think that we all try to do things ourselves. And like you said, like surrendering, I think that was just one thing for me. It's like, I just got to be completely honest with everybody. And Be the Blessing came from 2021, before the perfect game, like that World Series. So the beginning of that year, nobody ever talks about it because they just forget. Like I said, people forget the bad times. They always want to remember the good. So before the first half of the season, I mean, we were winning. The team was winning. So that was incredible. But I was not performing that well. I remember we were playing Texas A&M and it was Easter weekend and I was throwing and I was not throwing that great. Specifically one game, I gave up 3 home runs in one game and they weren't like solos. They were like grand slam, 3-run home run. I don't know how we won that game, but we did. Anyway, I remember being so mad. I stayed after and threugh it and I was like, I refuse to do that again. And then next weekend we beat another really good team and then I think like we ended up winning the rest of the series from there on out. And it was just something that I wrote. It's called my dream journal. It has to be in here somewhere. I wish I had it out. I went to Barnes and Noble and I was like, I'm gonna be writing down something. I gotta be praying. I gotta keep it right here at the front because it's just so easy to push it to the back. And I just remember writing down at the World Series, especially because when you're on that big of a stage, I was like, what is my purpose here? Like, I don't know what you need from me, but I want to figure it out or just let it go through me. So I just remember writing down and praying that I wanted to be the blessing to anybody that's watching. I told you what my professor told me about somebody's watching you for the first time. So I think in my brain, I was like, what do I want them to see? And I just, especially the day of my birthday, I was just so thankful. My parents got to come to the hotel. We had cupcakes that morning. We didn't play till 8. So it was like 2 separate days. And I just remember before the game, like, please let me be a blessing. I've received all these blessings. Just thank you. And then that day of the perfect game, that's all I felt the whole game. Like I can tell you probably every pitch because it was like a conversation. Like I felt like Jesus was standing there with me. And I know it was just softball and I know it feels like a lot, but it is just a game. And even though it's at the World Series, but that alone and that game alone, just being there with him has just made me realize that he's just right there the whole time. So if I can continue to try to be the blessing and think about that all the time, then he's going to be standing right there because he is where you call him to be. So if I'm going to just say it, I'm going to write it, I'm going to holler it at everybody, then he's going to be there and then hopefully touch other people's lives too.
That's just beautiful. Like, I mean, I know that your story is touching so many lives, and this is what girls need to hear. All of the other stuff is super fun and important, but I think the fact that you find your motivation in Jesus and you're not able to separate it, I think is really just a powerful message because it's not like, well, this is softball over here and this is my relationship with Jesus over here. Like they're intertwined because you recognize what you're doing is for his glory and you're recognizing like all the thankfulness in it. And I think, for me, the verses that always come to mind are, give thanks in all circumstances and all circumstances. So if you're losing, you're winning, you're up there pitching. And with my middle daughter being a pitcher, like I'm sitting there on the side and, you're just during a game. I remember when she first started pitching, it was like 100 degrees and she's out there and there's not any other pitchers and it's just her and they're just like killing it. I mean, it was disaster. And I'm just sitting there like, and she had always been my really emotional one. So I'm like, and I mean, there's like, it feels very isolating, I'm sure, right? To be a pitcher
Yeah,
sometimes
it's
you're
hard.
just
That's a
there.
hard moment. Yes.
Like everyone's watching you and there's no one to come in. And so I was just sitting there like, oh my goodness. And so eventually she comes out. I think they run ruled it and it was, it was a disaster. And so she comes out and she has a little bit of glassiness in her eyes, but it was such like a huge improvement from the years prior, just the emotional ups and downs that I had seen her go through. And I remember thinking, wow, like she's really growing in this. And I remember praying with her before, talking to her before about like there's so much more to this than just softball. Like you're going to grow in this like emotionally and mental toughness and you're going to grow closer to God if you allow it because you will feel his presence there if you are like you were talking about like that is the most beautiful picture thinking about you out there doing that and just having this conversation with God in every pitch. Like it's amazing. And I saw that day with her even because like I said, like when I'm watching her, I'm like, this must be the most isolating position to be in. And there's nowhere to go.
Yes.
There's nowhere to go. And so yeah, I love that. That is just a beautiful message. And you were talking about earlier, like, it's hard. Do I speak about it here? Do I not speak about it? Have you ever faced criticism or challenges for being open about your faith? And how do you handle it if you do?
Honestly, yes and no. I just feel like, especially in the world like with social media, I think has allowed that more because people are going to say things on social media that they would never say to you in person. Like I would love to see my reaction if somebody said to me in person, like, "Oh, that's a bunch of baloney," and then I'd be like, "I'm sorry, but I'll pray for you." But that's my take. I wish you the best of luck. But I just don't see people doing that a
Mm-hmm.
lot, but they do it on social media for sure. So I
Oh
think
yeah.
it's just unpopular. People don't want to see it for some reason. I just think that that's the devil working in his own ways. That's how I like to think about it. But honestly, I just keep doing what I think that is supposed to be done, and that's like our whole purpose anyway. I think our
Mm-hmm.
purpose is just to spread His love. And one thing that I try to pray every day is just how can I lead other people to you, and obviously work on mine and His relationship because it's not perfect. Like, and I would say that too. Like, it's not perfect. I'm not perfect. I'm not meant to be perfect. I'm not meant to understand. I'm just like this one little speck in this whole universe of things that He's created. So I think me posting on social media or saying about it in person, if somebody's got something to say, I don't even care because I
Yeah.
just know all the good things that He's done for me. And I know that they can only be done through Him. So I think just praying for them and that they can, I know that I now didn't always have that perspective. So people can grow in that. I think what can you do to help that? Regardless what they say, I feel like meanness and like ugliness just comes from a place of just not understanding. So I think just being able to say, I don't understand, use me how you must, I think is the next step for sure. Especially now. I mean, I feel like I'm a lot better at it now. But if I was 14, 15, or anywhere close to that, and on social media, like spreading that kind of thing, like I couldn't even imagine. Like, I don't care now, but I know I would have
Yeah.
cared when I was that young.
Oh yeah.
Because when I
Oh
was
yeah.
that young, I was just posting pictures with my friends. But if like you're passionate about Jesus and like doing that, I know it can be hard. So I think
Mm-hmm.
just know that Jesus got backlash too. So I think it's just what can I do to be more like Him? I'm not going to be Him, but I'm going to try my best. So I think just doing what is supposed to be done, and I think He's going to reward that with His grace and His love, and I think that you'll feel it too.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I like how you said that, we're not perfect and we're not going to be. And that's fine, but the aim is to be more like Jesus and to glorify him in our actions. And when you were saying something, it made me think of the verse Galatians 1:10, where it says, am I now seeking the approval of man or of God? Or am I trying to please people? If I were still pleasing people, I would not be a servant of Christ. And that's always been just one of my, like, I remember in high school, trying to be different than everyone else. I would see them doing certain things and I would be present at some of the things, but I didn't want to fall into that. And I remember this verse just on repeat. And I even now, as an adult and then with my girls, I'm like, this is the motivation. Like, I'm not trying to seek the approval of man. And when we get so wrapped up in that, that's whenever everything gets really just messed up. Like, emotionally in your mind, you're trying to please what they're doing. And it's all these ups and downs emotionally that shouldn't be there because, like you said, I'm just going to think about God and what he's calling me to do. And then like, I will pray for these other people. And I found too, whenever you share your story, it's not something that people can really argue with. They can't say, "Oh, well, that's not how that happened." That's not right. When it's like, "Well, that's my experience." Like you really can't argue with that. So I always find that to be an effective way to witness, and I notice that's what you do. At the end of your camp, you were talking about your story, and even as you are now, and it's just a beautiful thing. Like it really is.
Thank you. Yeah, I do love that because I think it's just something like you said, like for all ages, for every circumstance. Like I think that that's what everybody else does is compare, even if you don't feel it. Like I can probably now. I think one thing that I've just trying to be better at, and I'm having my fiance help me, my friends, like, hey, I'm trying to get better at like the first thing I do in the morning is just to open up the Bible. I don't even care what I'm reading because it always jumps out at me anyway. Like
Mm-hmm.
if you have any good devotionals, I actually was going to order another one off of Amazon today, but I just feel like if you can place that like at the front of your brain each day, I just
Mm-hmm.
think my morning routine is so important because then I have perspective on the whole day. Like I know that if I'm different, I'm probably a little bit special. Like
Mm-hmm.
I'm special in whatever Jesus wants me to do. So like you said, especially at that age, I think it's hard because you want to do everything else that everybody else is doing, but the sooner you can realize that it's just not about any of that, I think the better off that you're going to be.
Oh, for sure. And you were talking about a Bible study. Have you heard of the Bible recap, Tara Lee Cobble?
I don't think so. Maybe.
You should check that out. It's really
Okay.
good. So
The Bible
basically,
recap.
Bible recap. So she has a podcast. I think she's like on year 6 or 7. But every day she does just a 10-minute recap on a passage of scripture. And that's it. And then she also came out with a book that's it's basically the same thing that it's just kind of like her written out podcast. It's just like 2 pages, but it gets you working through scripture, the whole Bible. And it's just really good. I feel like I've learned so much through that. But the podcast is very fast. But you read your scripture that's aligned for that day, and then just listen to the podcast. But it's great. It's really good.
No, that's great. Yeah, I'll definitely be checking that out. 'Cause, like yesterday is a great example. I was like, I don't even know. I'm just going to turn where I last left off. And then I was drinking my little coffee and I opened it and it was like I was reading and just to be completely real, sometimes I like zone out. So then
Oh
I
yeah.
have to go back in and then it was like perfect timing of like zoning in and it was like planting the seed. I think all right, it has to be Mark. I'm almost positive about planting seeds and like the mustard seed and all of that. And I was like, this
Hmm.
is perfect. Exactly what I needed. It was this long, but just
Yeah.
set the tone for the whole day. So I
Yeah.
think it's especially if like you need to get in the habit of like that being the center of your attention. If you can do that first thing in the morning, it's game changer.
It really is. I notice the days that I don't do that. And I think for me, the morning is the time. It doesn't matter how early I have to get up because now I've set the tone for my day. And also, I think there's a discipline in putting God first. Like I'm
Uh,
saying, I put you first before, because honestly, right when I wake up, my mind is spinning. I'm like, I got to do this, like this.
yeah,
I mean, it's crazy. And I know everyone feels that way. So it's like, well, after I do these things, then I'll come back and read. After I do this, then I'll come. And then sometimes I do, and sometimes I don't. And there's such a shift when I don't do it. So now, like you said, it has to be the beginning. If I'm not doing a study, I think, okay, maybe I will just, I'll just pray and say, God, just show me what you want me to read or learn today. Maybe I'll like pull out my prayer journal and I have it sectioned by like family, friends, and the world. And then I'll just like go through each section and just pray over each, like write, whatever. And then
yeah.
it's really amazing because then you can go back and write the dates when those things were fulfilled. So now I can flip back and be like, oh, wow, like this was fulfilled. And it's amazing to see how God works and you see it throughout the pages. It's just a very intentional way. of reflecting back on his goodness.
Yeah, absolutely. I like that.
Yeah. So what does living out your faith in your daily life look like beyond softball, and also, beyond your morning time? Like, what else do you do?
Oh gosh. Well, my days look a little bit different now because like this time of year I'm staying home a lot more. So I think like it picks up a lot in March. So I know in March I'll be gone a lot. So right now I'll use it as an example because I'm not seeing a ton of people right now. Like I'm not able to stand up and speak about it. This is a great opportunity. But I think like how can I reflect on myself? Because you gotta like water your own seed before you can go out and plant a bunch of other ones. So I
Mm,
think just being able to reflect and think, how can I get better? Or even in difficult times, like I think it's easy, honestly, to sit here and say, like, how can I get better? And talk about how I can make myself better. Like that's easy to talk about. But in really hard times, I think it's just leaning on people. That's I'll keep saying it because he's like my favorite person, but my fiance is the best at just being able to say, well, what should we do? Not what are we gonna like, what do you want to do? It's like, what should you do in this situation? Well, we should probably just pray about it. Or
mhm.
we need to read here. We need to get in a better habit of doing this. Like your brain is, it's so funny because it wants to work in different ways that are not always beneficial for you. So I
Right.
think just leaning on people that know your goals and know who you want to be, and whenever you can't, because there's times where I don't want to either. Like it's easy to
Right.
sit here and say like that this is easy. I didn't get up this morning and do it. I did it yesterday, but it's almost 1 o'clock here and I haven't done that yet.
Yeah.
So I'm not going to act like I'm perfect, but I think just being able to lean on people because you can't handle things yourself and be able to say that I'm going to give it my best shot, but I know that I can't do it myself. So I
Mhm.
think just being able to surrender completely is something that I'm still working on because I'm a controller. My
Me
brain
too.
likes to work 100 miles per hour. It's 9 o'clock. Last night it was like 10:30, and it's like I need to wind down. I'm like a little child going to sleep. So I think just being able to say, okay, calm down. There's so many things that could be done, but what can you do right now to make it better for you to grow your relationship with Jesus? Because you can't be the best version of yourself or give the best version of yourself to other people if you're not even doing it for yourself. So I think
So true.
sometimes being a little bit more selfish too with your time with Jesus because we can go, 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 but that can only go so long by yourself.
Oh yeah. And you think that you can just do it all.
Yeah.
And then all of a sudden you hit a wall and you realize, oh,
Yes.
that's not good. Or I'll react to something in a different way than I normally would. And it's either because I'm tired, I'm not spending time with Jesus. There's something off that needs to be um, there. That's just not there at that time. And, you know, we're from Texas. And so we live in Ohio now. And I'm looking out at snow everywhere right now. Huge difference. And, there's a piece of me that, I mean, maybe by March or April, if it's still doing this, I'm kind of like done.
Yeah.
But there's a piece of me that likes this season too, because it allows me to like slow down in some ways. And it allows me, like you said, to reflect on different things and reflect on my walk, reflect on how God, wants to use me at this point in my life. And reflect on our girls too, what we're putting them in, what, we're exposing them to. And then also, I like how you mentioned the need for the people that you surround yourself with. That fellowship, it's so important. It's so important that you are surrounding yourself with people that are going to build you up and draw you closer to Christ and that know you and know your struggles. And because, like you said, we're not perfect and we're going to struggle and we're going to have maybe a week or whatever it is where we aren't spending time with God and we're just like reacting to everything. And we need those people that are like, hey, like, I noticed that you're a little off. Let's talk about this. And I think it's awesome too that you are building that foundation with your fiance too. Like I'm pretty sure that when we were at the camp, was he one of the guys at the table selling shirts and stuff? Because I saw
Yes.
y'all together later, and I just want to say like, and I came up to you briefly. I know you see it hundreds of people, but y'all just really shine the light of Jesus. You really do. And you said that earlier about just wanting to like even if it's just like a sparkle of something. And I will say that you absolutely do that. And he did too. Like
Well,
even
thank
my
you.
girls noticed him. Like they were like, he was so nice. Like he was just like so full of joy. So just know that you are doing that, even if you aren't having maybe an opportunity to do like a big, speech or whatever. Like y'all are doing that just by being there. And then even all your merchandise, like I'm wearing it now. Like it's one of my favorite sweatshirts. I love what it says, but it's also super comfortable.
Well, thank you.
uh,
Thank you. We're working on some new ones. We're excited to get them out there, but thank you.
oh, we love them. So, okay, so a few fun questions to wrap up our conversation today. If you could have a conversation with any biblical figure besides Jesus, who would it be and why?
Oh gosh. Um,
I feel like there's so many for
there's
different
so
reasons.
many.
It's
Oh
like,
my
what season am
gosh.
I in that
Yeah,
who I
literally.
want to talk to?
Literally. Honestly, probably no. I would want to talk to no. I would want to know that whole situation with the arc so bad.
Yeah.
Like I want to
Mhm.
know what he was going through and like the people saying like you're crazy kind of thing. So well, it might be a little bit closer to you actually. The arc exhibit. I've never been there before. My
Yes, you
mom
should
has been
go.
there, and she told. I didn't even know that it took so long to build. I
Yeah.
was like, that's
Yeah.
crazy that they were like living that long and that strong. But I was like, she was telling me because she went through all of it that it was people were like, that's insane. And you only got, I mean, I don't even know how many people were on there, but I think just what that was like in that situation because nobody believes you at all. Like
Right.
you're the crazy person, but it's like,
Yep.
well, Jesus told me this or God was speaking to me. So I think just like you said, like perspective is crazy. Like we're sitting here talking about like our journeys and like mine's in softball and Noah's out there just building an ark, like saving saving on these animals. It's like
Yes.
I just think that that would be awesome to do.
Yeah, and I think that is like one of the clearest pictures of like doing what God tells you to do, even if everyone thinks you are crazy.
Yes. That I would say him or probably Mary, honestly. I would especially in the beginning, I think that that is just how courageous. So I think one of the two. Or
Yeah.
there's a million, but that would be awesome.
Yeah. Even as I asked the question, I was like, I really think it would depend on what season of my own life that I'm in and what I'm struggling with. Like, we will watch The Chosen with the girls, and I think it brings some of those characters in the Bible, like their characteristics, to life when we're watching it. And I think about like even Peter. I love the vulnerability and the transparency in the Word. How it just really shows these people like they're not perfect, and just watching him, like and reading about his journey, I think that would be really like fascinating to talk to him too. And there's just so many. It's
Yeah.
just there's so much, but I love that about Noah.
I was actually probably gonna mention that today. I was thinking about it yesterday, The Chosen. When I was reading,
Yeah,
I was
it's
like,
good.
what is something that we do that we could like turn into something a little bit better, like just watching TV?
Mm-hmm.
And I forgot
Yes.
that that's a show. Like we watch
Yeah.
TV almost every day. So like what's something that could be a little bit more beneficial than just turning on the TV? But
Right.
that's okay. Then that's my sign that we need to start it then.
Yeah, it's really good. And I mean, honestly, I think we started that during COVID, because we were home and I felt exactly what you just said. I was like, if we're going to be here so much, we need to like fill our minds with something other. I mean, I could binge watch a million shows and we,
Yeah.
and we will, and that's fine.
Yes.
But, like to take up a few hours and really fill our minds with this. And I mean, there's some creative liberties taken with it, but overall, there's so much truth in it. And I feel like when I go back and read the Gospels after watching that, I'm like, oh, like it really brings it to life in a different way. So yeah, I would definitely recommend it.
Okay. That's awesome.
It's really good. So, do you have any go-to hype songs or artists for working out or before a game?
I am so obsessed with Brandon Lake, it's not even funny. Like
Yeah.
if I don't go to one of his concerts, I'm going to be really upset. I think
Yeah.
it's Hard Fought Hallelujah and Count 'Em are like
Oh
if
yeah.
it will be my number one and number two songs of the year. I'm
Oh yeah.
obsessed because you just don't find so many like hype songs and One thing I'm trying to get better at is like getting rid of all of the things that could fill my mind, like with negative things. And you don't
Mhm.
realize how bad songs are.
Oh, they're bad.
Like
Yeah.
and not to be like the person that I am trying my best. I'm not perfect, but it's one thing that I listen to music a lot
Yeah.
and I'm in the car a lot. So it's like, what are things that could be more positive? So I've been working on music. So that's why I know a little bit more about it. And his songs are just awesome. Like I'll find myself literally in tears on my way to like a workout, just of like just pure happiness. Like how thankful am I? And I'm just crying on the
Mhm.
way there. People, if I get pulled over, this guy's gonna think I'm crazy. That's what's happening. So I think him, those two songs. I'm trying to think. But I would think that anything that he sings, like he's got a ton of stuff on Apple Music that is so good. Um,
That was actually my oldest, her walk-up song was "Count 'Em."
Really,
Yeah,
that's one of my favorite ones. And then, oh my
love it.
gosh, the last one that I'll say is another one by him. I like Mercy Me Too. That's my mom's
Mhm,
favorite.
mhm.
Is Gratitude from Brandon Lake. I'll
Yes.
cry every time I listen to
Yeah.
it because I'm like,
So good.
this is so great. So I think that those are some of
So
my
good.
favorite ones.
Yeah, so good. He came to town not too long ago, like in Columbus, which is like an hour from us. And he came with Phil Wickham because I guess they're like best friends. And I really wanted to go. And then by the time I looked, everything was like sold out. I was like,
I
no.
would
I was
have
like, next
cried.
time. I was
I
like,
think
no.
literally when you're talking about, I have something saved by him too on here somewhere. Literally
They're
so
so
good.
good.
So good.
So good. Yeah. And I totally understand what you're saying. Like, I will go back and listen to some songs that I listened to in high school, and I'm like, oh my gosh, like that was
Yeah.
terrible, terrible. And I'm like filling my mind with this. So I'm by no means perfect in that. I'll turn on something, and then one day I'll be like, oh, jam into it. The next day I'm like completely convicted and like I should not be filling my mind with
Yeah.
this. So completely relate.
I get it, especially when like whenever I mean, don't get me wrong, like I'm extremely thankful, but I'm also like a crazy at softball. Like I'm going to be like a dog like, so it's like I'm trying to get motivated, then it's like what's the right way to do that? So
Right.
I think
Right.
taking a step back for sure. I get that
It's
100%.
the girls have really picked up a lot of like even the Christian rap stuff because they liked
Yeah.
that when they were warming up like some different rap music and stuff. So like KB is good, Andy Mineo, Lecrae, like those have been really good for that kind of thing for like
Yeah.
hype up music that's clean.
Yeah.
So it's hard to find.
It is hard to find. I'll have to give those a look for sure.
Yeah, yeah. So what is one piece of advice you would give to young athletes?
Oh gosh. Um There's actually so many things when I think about my younger self. One thing that Murph told me my first practice there was he said the sooner you realize it's not about you, the better off you're going to be. And I was like, well, that's kind of harsh. But then the older that I've gotten, I'm like, that makes so much sense. Like I just
Mhm.
think it's so whether you want to look at it faith wise or not, I think that that's something everybody can hear. Like to me, that does mean faith and having that. But I think just realizing it's just not about you. I think give it your all, go out there, work hard, be the best that you can be. Like you can fulfill all your dreams that you want, but you're not, even if you do everything on paper and get all your achievements, like what kind of teammate are you? Are people going to be like, I enjoyed playing with her? Like, I think
Mhm.
just realizing that there's way more than what meets the eye, especially when it comes to sports. I think just who
Mhm.
do you want to be? Or how does that person act? Like, think about who you want to be, like an Olympian. Like, for example, I'll use myself. Like, I want to be an Olympian one day. So, how would an Olympian act? Like, I think it's just go ahead and start acting out those things and being that kind of person. And it's not like fake it till you make it kind of thing. It's this is who I want to be, so I'm going to be that. So I
Right.
think the sooner you realize it's just not about you, like put your ego aside and ask yourself the hard questions, then the better off. Like, are you working hard enough to actually reach your goals? Probably not. Like, I have a lot of faith in Jesus, but if I didn't practice, I probably wouldn't be any good.
Right.
Like,
Right.
I think it's
Right.
asking yourself hard questions and being able to answer them truthfully.
Yeah. And I think too, even just holding those goals loosely in the sense that it's, I mean, just in our day to day life, like first of all, like you said, it's not about me. and realizing that, like, I think that's a life lesson in all areas, not just sports. It's great advice. But also just praying that my desires will be in line with God's will in my life. I remember when we moved from Texas and then we moved to Tennessee and then from Tennessee to here. And all of our family lives in Texas. And I said, I will never leave Texas. Like, that's home. I will never leave. And then, it's about the time you say never that God's like, well, let's see. So my husband came home and he was like, hey, like, my boss is talking about, moving me up to Tennessee. We have an option. Obviously, we don't have to, but what do you think? And I remember my immediate reaction was no, like, that's crazy. And then God opening up my heart to it and realizing that, like, I'd rather do that and maybe cry the whole way there than live outside of his will and force it to stay in Texas. Cause I just knew at that point in time, like, God was calling us to something else. And through those years of moving, like, I've seen it, like, God was already in Tennessee when we got there, and then we moved to Ohio, and, like, we've just seen his providence and goodness in every step. And so, like, holding those goals loosely and holding those things loosely, just because you want to live in his will above anything else.
Yeah, absolutely.
So, like I said earlier, we recently attended one of your camps and tournaments, and it was an amazing experience. You spent just amazing one-on-one time with the girls, which I know meant a lot to my girls, but I've heard nothing but positive things from everyone that went, saying the exact same thing and just how well organized it was. And we loved it so much that we signed up our girls for your next pitching camp in the area, and we're super excited. So could you tell our listeners about your upcoming camps you're offering?
Yeah. So 2025 is going to be full of them. I know that we have a couple ones in the spring, and I think the one that you're talking about in March is pitching only, but most of the time that they're tournaments. And then we have like an all skills tournament Saturday, Sunday, all skills on Friday. So it'll be me, I cover pitching, and then Allie Shipman will cover catching, Sis Bates with infield, and Bailey Dowling also with infield. So I think we do all of that on Friday, as far as some defense, some hitting, and then my favorite part is Q&A, our little talk at the end after the Friday evening camp. And then Saturday and Sunday is just a regular tournament, except I just going around. I love talking to people. Technically, I guess I'm the tournament director. Somebody called me that the other day, and I was like, I guess you're right. I was like, I am.
You're like, that's me.
Yeah, wait. So I will say I have a ton of help. People help me because I'll be the first one to admit I do not know everything about it, but I have a lot of people helping me and make sure it goes smoothly, because my number one goal is just for people to, one, like, you come for a tournament. So making sure like you're playing and getting all of that in and it's competitive. But also just like we've been talking about the whole time, like, I just want the girls to have a great time. I heard this one thing one time. It was like, don't meet your role models, because it's like disappointing sometimes. And I'm like, that cannot be me. Like, I cannot have one of these girls come here and be like, Montana was kind of mean. That would break my heart, and I couldn't do it anymore. So I think just the whole time, just being able to be somebody for girls and for parents. I think asking questions. I mean, don't get me wrong. Me and my dad fought like cats and dogs half the time growing up. So I can answer a lot of questions and give the best answers I can. I don't know everything, but I think just being able to communicate and not just what you see on TV and just be real is what my goal is for all of them, is just to give the best help that I can.
Yeah. And I think it absolutely felt real, like, and genuine, like everything did. Everyone running your camp, very genuine, very helpful, very positive. And I mean, I'm being honest when I tell you, like, that's all I've heard about it. So you're doing a great job.
Well, thank you. That means a lot.
Yeah. So that about wraps it up for me, but I was going to bring my girls down because they wanted to ask you a question.
Yes.
So I'm going to grab them real fast. I'll be right back.
Okay. Hey, how are y'all doing?
Good, how are you?
So good. So good to see you guys.
You too.
Oh my gosh, you already look older. It's scary.
It is. It's so fast.
I know. Ugh, your all's hair looks so good too.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Mm-hmm. So I'm a 12-year-old pitcher, and what are some things that you would suggest I focus on at this age?
Honestly, a lot just of mechanics, and I work with some girls in the area, and I see them every week. And one thing is just so consistent, and I think that I would even tell somebody my age pitching too. It's just not going to be a lot of the fun stuff, especially at the beginning. Like it needs to be mechanics. It needs to be doing the same, like repetition, like having the same mechanics time and time again. And then I think will help develop the other pitches, but most importantly, too, just to keep you pitching for a long time. Like we want you to stay safe, your arm not to hurt. Like your back shouldn't hurt as a 12-year-old. So I think just working on things like that to keep you strong, healthy, and just being able to do whatever you want to do. So I would definitely say strong mechanics for sure.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
And I'm a freshman going into my high school ball years, so what do you suggest during this stage?
Honestly, just soak it all in because it goes by so fast. But don't be afraid, especially as a freshman, to just go in there and do what you do. And to just don't be afraid to be outspoken for sure about things that you know to be true, or it can be softball or non-softball related things. Just be yourself. Like the sooner you can be yourself, the better off you're going to be. Like if that's goofy, funny, you like to dance, like don't hinder yourself to anything just because you're scared of what other people might think. And that could go for all ages, but I think especially freshman year. I remember freshman year of high school and freshman year of college, it was a transition for sure. So I just think the sooner I was able to do all the things I wanted to do and be who I wanted to be, the happier I was. Yeah, of course.
Second grader and I'm 8 and out. Can you please tell me how you're able to balance everything with like school life and softball and all of it?
Yeah, I would definitely say my best friend is my planner, for sure. I think just writing down things and having like a priority list, especially when life can get crazy. Me and your mom were just talking about it. Like one thing that I have to do to have a good day, like a great day, is just spend time with Jesus. So if I've got to write that down, I'm going to write it down. Like if I got to write down, call my parents, like especially if like you're away or something like that, or feed the dogs, do your homework. Like having things on the to-do list and then also like a month-long calendar has helped me tremendously, especially with things like you would end up forgetting my homework, or I've got practice at this time, or I've got a call at this time. So I just think don't be afraid to write little things down, make the to-do list, and then just having priority of things that you want to accomplish every day. So it's like, for example, for your age, you go to school and maybe you've got practice, but what are some other things that you know that you would love to do to have a great day? So I think writing those down, even if it's you shouldn't be drinking coffee, but I know that I'm going to drink coffee. Okay. So when I drink coffee, I'm going to spend time with Jesus because I know that's something I'm going to do. So I think it's just keeping things together and doing things that you enjoy too, not just the have to do kind of things. Thank you guys. So good to see you again. Can't wait to see you. Oh my gosh, less than a month. Yes, I can't wait. Thank y'all. They're so cute.
Thank you.
You guys
We were
literally
excited.
all look the same. It's adorable. I love it.
It's a lot of hair.
Yes, it's a good problem to have.
It's a whole lot of hair.
Yes.
Okay. Well, awesome. So thank you so much, Montana, for coming on our podcast today. I know those listening are going to leave feeling motivated and encouraged from everything you said, and just on their own sports journeys, but just in everyday life too. So thank you so much.
Of course. Thank you so much for having me.